This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
As a small business owner, sometimes it feels like no matter how much planning you do, there's always surprises, like an urgent, expensive repair. But here's a surprise you will like. With Progressive, small business owners save 13% on their commercial auto insurance when they pay in full. So enjoy a surprise for once. Get a quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Who texted first? Who planned the last date? And does any of it actually matter? Today, we're going to talk about initiation in dating and how to handle one-sided effort and the one question that will help you stop spiraling every time someone goes quiet. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm sharing no-nonsense advice for navigating dating and relationships with confidence and ease, whether you've been dating for a while or you're just starting out. I believe dating can be fun, and I'm here to help you enjoy the process. One of the ways we can enjoy dating more is by having a plan for when the people we date start making us question their interest or their intentions because there's an imbalance when it comes to initiation. Isn't it so frustrating when you feel like you're the one doing all the work? Here's how it played out for one of my one-on-one coaching clients. She has a demanding job. She also has a serious hobby on the side that takes up a lot of her time, and she appreciates people who make plans. So she was frustrated that the guy she was dating for about a month stopped making plans ahead of time and stopped initiating time to hang out. She at first chalked it up to him being a business owner, and she said that he told her he prefers spontaneity. Okay, well, in our session, we talked about how to navigate this because at a certain point, for some of us, spontaneity can feel like we're abandoning ourselves, especially if we want the stability of having a plan and we also have a need to plan around dates, right? We have to fit people in somewhere. You have other things going on. You have to figure out all the logistics. That's normal. And the other problem with spontaneity is that sometimes it makes us feel like we're not prioritized. No one's thinking ahead. Making last minute plans, for my client at least, made her feel like she was an afterthought in this relationship. Can you relate? Maybe you've been in or are currently in a situation where you feel like you initiate more of the texting or dates, or you're the one asking more questions or initiating deep conversations and overall doing more work in the relationship, and it feels one-sided, like they lack interest or they're not as intentional or as committed as you are. So in this episode, I'm breaking down initiation in dating and relationships, what it is, why it's important, why people don't do it, and how to set and hold boundaries around this. And we'll also get into the one question that will tell you exactly what to do next. By the way, if you tend to overthink texting and you just don't know how to navigate certain situations in dating, or you're new to it and you just need some guidance, I have a free texting guide that's full of templates for all different kinds of dating situations that you can use. And of course, you can take my templates and make them your own. So you can get that for free at datingintentionallypod.com/gift. It's also in the show notes for you. That's datingintentionallypod.com/gift. And there are some other goodies in that link for you as well. So here's why I really want to talk about this. Dating is more fun when you're decisive, when you don't linger on what to do and spin yourself into a mess of confusion because you've been mulling over all the different options of how to move forward before taking action. That's not fun. What's fun is making decisions and moving on. I want you to come up with a protocol for yourself to handle these situations, and I hope that this episode helps you get clarity on what that is so you don't get stuck in this. What is initiating? When I talk about initiating, I mean being the person to reach out about a date, the person to reach out to start a conversation, the person who picks up the phone and calls, the person who just makes the communication happen. In my friend group, I tend to be the initiator. I want to be the person who gets the ball rolling with dinner plans, who invites people to things. And I'll reach out to friends and ask them if I remember something that they're going through. And that to me is like being a good friend. It's being someone who's present and moving the friendship forward, if that makes sense, like actually investing in the friendship. Not everyone is an initiator, and that's okay, but I know you might be listening and be like, yes, that's me. I actively try to put effort into my relationships by initiation. Being an initiator means you're not passive. You start shit. You are not taking a back seat. You are actually driving things. It takes energy, and in dating, it's one of the many ways that we can show interest and move things forward. And it can feel so exhausting when you're the only person doing it. You might be wondering, do they like me? Are they annoyed by me asking them to hang out? Are they even into this? It's normal to have those feelings of doubt, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything wrong. Initiation is effort, and if it's not balanced, you're going to feel that. So why aren't they initiating? I don't want to spend too much time analyzing, but if you're really looking for an answer, it could be lack of interest. Sometimes it is that simple. It could be fear of rejection, right? We all have emotional baggage, and sometimes it does get in the way of taking action. It could be fear of being too much or moving too fast. Some people are overly calculated, and I do think that backfires. It could be depression or medical issues getting in the way. You never know. Also, life happens. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Or it just could be that dating is not a priority for them, or you're not a priority for them. It could be that dating isn't a priority for them, or you're not a priority for them. And they might not be able to admit that, but that could be the case as well. But here's the thing to remember, though. The reason doesn't have a huge impact on what you're going to do next, because what matters is whether this relationship dynamic aligns with what you're looking for, especially if you're used to putting your feelings aside, not speaking up, and shrinking yourself to be in a relationship. So again, we don't need to analyze. What I do want you to analyze, though, is this. And this is the one thing that really will shift a lot for you in this moment of, wow, this feels so unbalanced and I don't know what to do and I'm having all this anxiety. And this is the question I ask people in my DMs who come to me with this exact scenario. And that is, what is your desired outcome? What do you want right now? And here's where I'm going to get a little tough on you, but I know you can handle it. What do you want more? The date to happen, right? That seeing each other in person, the connection to happen, right? Talking, or for them to want to see you and talk to you. What do you want more? The connection or their desire? Do you want to see them and get to know them, or do you want to feel wanted by them? There is no wrong answer. And obviously we all want to feel desired. That is normal. But in this moment, when you're staring at your phone, minutes away from chucking it across the room because you haven't heard from them all day, or they're not confirming a date or whatever, what do you actually want? Maybe it's clarity. Maybe it's connection, and maybe it's to feel desired. You need to answer that for yourself, right? Dig deep, be like, what do I actually want? Is it clarity, connection, or desire? It could be a combination of all of them, okay? But only you can answer this in this moment. You need to get a sense of what your desired outcome is, though, because that informs how you're going to handle it and what to do next. If you want clarity, right? If you want to know where you stand with someone in this moment where they're not initiating and you're like, what the hell? I want you to zoom out and reflect on the last few interactions and dates you've had. Can you get clarity just from that? Can you get clarity just from zooming out and looking at what happened the last few weeks? Like, oh yeah, we do touch base almost daily. And oh yeah, we had our fourth date and there's nothing in the way of us having a fifth. Like, ground yourself in that reality. And that's a good step to get clarity without talking to them about it, just focusing on the facts. But if you zoom out and you feel more confused, or you're still just like, I don't get what's going on here, you can send them a text, something like, I can't tell based on our communication if you're still interested in getting to know each other. That response will tell you a lot. And that, by the way, is inspired by Erica Ettin. She has a lot of posts on the I can't tell text and how effective it is. Another thing to think about if you're looking for clarity is, are you doing your part? Are you potentially giving mixed signals, or are you showing interest because you're interested? That is really important to self-reflect, right? What am I doing here? What am I contributing to this dynamic that could be throwing them off? So this is your moment to do an audit of what's been going on, an audit of your behavior. And if that isn't giving you any clarity, send the I can't tell text. If you want connection, right? If in this moment your desired outcome is connection, then you kind of need to get past the whole initiation thing and just reach out. Don't overthink it. Here's the thing about initiation, and we'll get into this more later, that it's not always going to be 50-50. It's not always going to be perfectly even. It's more of an art than a science. You know, it's not going to be that cut and dry, tit for tat, transactional. Sometimes you are going to have more free time than them, or more headspace to reach out, and that's okay. If you want connection, you can go get it by reaching out. And don't just reach out and say, hey, okay, we got to be a little more interesting than that. Don't just say, how's your day? That's so boring. You can also reach out and just say something like, are you watching Silo? Have you seen The Odyssey yet? Or have you ever been to this restaurant? I just walked by. It looks so good. It looks amazing, whatever. Add more texture to your text if you're looking for connection. You can also just reach out and say, when am I going to see you again? Or can we meet up for drinks again? Or whatever that is, like move that forward. If your desired outcome is to be desired, if you want to feel wanted, you're like, I just want them to want me. Well, this is the trickiest one because the best thing to do here is unfortunately nothing. If you want to feel desired, you have to create space for someone to desire you in a way that's not testing them, which is really hard to do, especially if you're already upset that they're not showing up in the way that you'd hope. Like it's hard to create space without it kind of feeling like punishment. And that's why this one is just so tricky. If you're sitting here thinking like, but Talia, they've had 4 days of space and I haven't heard from them. Like they've had plenty of days to desire me. Well, then I think you know your answer. Unless they said that they're going to be unavailable this week for whatever reason, that's the information. That is all you kind of need to know at that point. It sucks to come to this realization, but we have to remember that one, with the right person, you are not going to be this confused. And two, you deserve someone consistent. So if it's been like over 3 days and you haven't heard from them and you haven't reached out either, then it might be worth sending a close the loop text or the I can't tell text so that you don't have to sit here in agony waiting for a sign. And I'll link the close the loop text in the show notes. So that's the recap on just what to do in this moment when they're not initiating and you're upset. You've got to ask yourself, what is my desired outcome? Do I want clarity, connection, or desire? Up to you. No wrong answer. Could be a combination. But now you know what to do in that moment because how you feel and what you want is going to inform your next move. All right, we're going to take a break here and then we have a lot more to get into. When it comes to dating, I don't want you to be the cool girl. And this applies to the men listening too. You know the type, the person who shrugs everything off, who's so chill, so easygoing, so unbothered. They never actually say what they want. But not this summer. In dating, we're being honest, direct, and a little bit uncool. But when we're sleeping, well, okay, I actually do want you to be the cool girl, the cool guy, or the coolest person in the entire bed, really. And that's where Boll & Branch comes in because the wrong sheets trap heat, but Boll & Branch bedding will keep you cool all night. Their sheets are 100% organic cotton woven specifically for airflow, not just softness. So the cooling is not some synthetic cooling technology or chemical treatment that washes out. It's how the cotton is woven. And 94% of Boll & Branch customers say their sheets get softer with every single wash, and I agree. I can't get enough of Boll & Branch. And look, I take hosting very seriously. I'm having a bunch of guests this summer. I've already had a bunch of guests this year. And I've been using Boll & Branch's signature hand-stitched cloud comforter set on my guest bed. Every single person who stayed with me has said how comfy our bed setup is for them. And for me, this is the ultimate hosting compliment. And it's all thanks to Boll & Branch. I have this comforter set in the sky color and it makes the room look even more cozy and inviting. Plus, yes, it is super easy to wash. Sleep cooler this summer with Boll & Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/dating with code dating. That's Boll & Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/dating, code dating to unlock 15% off. bollandbranch.com/dating, code dating, exclusions apply. One of my favorite ways to spend time with my husband is on the couch watching movies, TV, and cuddling with our dog Coconut. And lately, I've been wanting to upgrade some of our living room pieces, especially our couch. Couch shopping is no joke, but I know Wayfair has my back. When my husband and I first moved in together, we didn't have a ton of furniture between the two of us, and we've loved making our home feel cozy with pieces from Wayfair. Like we've added some lighting and rugs and other pieces that make our home look way more put together. Everything I have from Wayfair has felt like a true upgrade, but what I love about them most is that you can actually trust what you're buying. You can look out for the Wayfair verified badge, which means it's been through a real 10-point quality inspection for materials, functionality, even how long it takes to assemble. So there's no gambling on whether or not something's going to hold up in real life or if it's going to last. Wayfair has over 20 million verified 5-star reviews with real customer photos, so I can see exactly how something looks in my actual home before it shows up. That makes choosing so much easier. Join Wayfair Rewards today and get 5% back on every purchase and start saving on your next home upgrade. Head to wayfair.com to shop all things home. That's WAYFAR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Welcome back. And by the way, if you have any thoughts or comments on this episode or anything I'm talking about, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on Instagram at dating.intentionally. I love hearing from you and I answer as many questions as I can. So don't be a stranger. I'm here for you. Okay, let's get into this fun little dating pickle because I know you might be thinking it as we've been talking about initiation. And that is, if they wanted to, they would. Would they though? Let's get into it. I know that this is the whole thing. Like if they wanted to initiate, wouldn't they just be doing it? If they wanted to see me, wouldn't they ask? If they wanted to text, wouldn't they text? It depends. Here's an example, okay? I was chatting with a woman yesterday in my DMs who was frustrated because the guy she was dating for about a month was texting her for 2 weeks. It was because the plans they made had fallen through. They were sick. There were other plans, just they ended up texting for 2 weeks without seeing each other because of this. And he had not properly rescheduled or made date plans. So she finally said to him, I don't want to be pen pals. I want to see each other. And that's totally fair to say. That is a fair text to send after 2 weeks of texting and no date. He came back defensive. He said he fully intended on inviting her to a concert. So why didn't he just ask her when he had the tickets and the date and the time and the intention? I mean, I don't know. But this is one example of why if he wanted to, he would, isn't always so cut and dry. He said he wanted to ask her to this concert, but he didn't do that. Again, we don't know why. My point is, their desire is irrelevant. It doesn't matter if someone wants to do something. What matters is that they're actually doing it. That's the result. Right? That's what you're actually looking for. In this case, he was not asking her out on a date, even if he said he wanted to. I don't like this whole if he wanted to or if they wanted to, they would, because it puts us in the position of analyzing their behavior instead of asking ourselves, do I like it? Do I like what's going on here? And in the case of this person I was talking to, she didn't like his behavior and she spoke up about it and moved on. There are all kinds of reasons why people don't do things that they want. And I wish we could just abolish this phrase from dating advice because it's not so black and white. Okay, another thing I want to talk about on the initiation piece is setting boundaries and standards. The truth is, you can't control what someone does. You can't make someone initiate dates with you. That's just not the type of relationship dynamic we want, right? There's no ultimatums here. There's no, you've got to do this. You've got to pull your weight. It's just controlling. It's not ideal. And a common reaction to dealing with someone who doesn't initiate is being like, okay, what do I do here? Do I keep going? Do I speak up? Do I walk away? How do I get them to initiate more? And I don't know if you really can, but you can align yourself with your standards and you can set boundaries. So both your boundaries and standards come into play here. Your standard is I only continue investing my time and connections that feel reciprocal. Right? That's your standard. If it doesn't feel reciprocal, then the boundary you enforce is that you exit, right? You leave connections that don't feel reciprocal. And of course, you can talk about it before you leave, but that's the boundary, right? That's how you enforce that boundary. The standard is, this is what I do. I am only interested in relationships that feel reciprocal. And the boundary is I leave relationships that don't. Controlling is just saying to them, you have to initiate more or else, right? Basically anything where you're telling them how to act. And there is a difference between requesting something and demanding it, right? You can say, I prefer to take turns initiating dates. You're saying, that's my preference. That's what I want. And they have a chance to say whether or not they agree with that. Yeah, that sounds good to me, or no, that doesn't. And maybe they can say, yeah, that sounds good. And if they don't follow through, well, then you have your answer, right? That's your standard. You don't date people who can't do that. This is bare minimum stuff, by the way. It's hard to build a relationship where only one person is responsible for time spent together or conversations between dates and moving things forward. That's like being in a 2-person kayak and only one person is paddling, right? It's going to be a struggle. So just know this is not asking for too much. And if you're dating someone who isn't initiating anything, you're not crazy for having an issue with that. Here's one mistake to avoid though, and that is initiation chicken. If you're always the one waiting for them to initiate a date or a text conversation or something else because you don't want to get rejected or you don't want to risk the lack of reciprocation, then we have some internal work to do here. If you want a relationship that's mutual, that means that you have to do your part too. That's why I say, make it a practice early. Just send the text after the date, right? Don't test people. If you had a good time, send the text. And that's just one example of doing your part and not playing initiation chicken. If you want someone to chase you, if that's all you're about, you're like, I just want to be chased, I just want to be hunted like a gazelle or whatever, then it's really hard to get into a reciprocal relationship because being chased requires to keep someone at a distance. They can't chase you if there's no distance. So that's why you can't ever really have intimacy if you're only focused on the chase. Nonchalance is making dating harder. So if you want to stand out, be the person who initiates while allowing some space for them to reach out. Like I said earlier, it's an art, not a science. It takes some time to figure out that balance. I'll share a little bit about my experience here when I was dating. Multi-dating really came into play for me here because this lack of initiative and initiation was and is very prevalent in the dating pool, right? Nonchalance is everywhere. So multi-dating, meaning seeing 2 to 3 people at once before you're exclusive with them, meant that the person who wasn't initiating just kind of fizzled out. They faded away because the people who were initiating rose to the top, right? That's kind of how that worked. It's like the person who just didn't make plans with me just wasn't going to see me and they weren't going to get any of my attention, right? I was only going to give attention to people who were reciprocal and where things were mutual. And yeah, look, it was a bummer when someone I thought was a catch didn't message me back or wasn't making plans with me. But at the end of the day, if they didn't show up, they lost their catch status in my brain. They were no longer a catch to me if they weren't initiating. They're not a catch anymore. They're just a nonchalant dater that I don't want to engage with. I learned to be turned off by flakiness. And it didn't matter if they were the best looking, smartest, funniest person. If they couldn't make and stick to a plan, and if they couldn't show up and match my energy, they lost their attractiveness to me. And look, I also always made sure to do my part in initiating conversations and dates. I didn't take it personally when someone wasn't reciprocating, right? That doesn't have anything to do with me and it's none of my business. I'm going to focus on the people who are. With Johnny, my husband, it was easy because he was motivated and persistent and I was open and receptive to that. And I matched his energy because it was the kind of energy that I was looking for. Even if I wasn't sure about him and our connection at first, I recognized, I'm like, okay, this is someone who's initiating, who is putting effort and time in, and I haven't run into any deal breakers. So even though there was no spark, I'm going to continue investing in this person because they're showing me that they're the kind of person I want to invest in. I hope that makes sense. And here are some other simple ways to think about this, right? If you're like, Talia, I just need a really simple framework, here's how to not get stuck. If you initiated the last date or two, step back and see what they do. If they initiated the last date, you should initiate the next one. With texting, it's a little bit more fluid. I think for the guys listening, be aware that a lot of women do pay attention to who is initiating and starting text conversations. If you scroll back and you notice that she reaches out first, she likely would love to hear from you first for once in a while, right? That is a great way to show interest. And if you don't know what to say, get my text templates. They're in the show notes, or you can grab them at datingintentionallypod.com/gift. So just to wrap things up here, I want to reiterate that every relationship is going to have a different balance of initiation. It's not ever going to be totally equal. Some people naturally plan more dates and are more communicative over text versus others. That's normal. I don't want you parsing through your texts and interactions looking for this mathematically even 50-50 split. I want you to focus on whether or not you feel some level of reciprocation in general when you zoom out on the connection. And I don't want you to spend weeks and weeks figuring out why someone isn't initiating. It doesn't matter why. It matters if you like their behavior or not. And then you get to decide what your desired outcome is and what to do next so that you can get your desired outcome, right? That is on you. Dating gets a whole lot easier when you stop trying to decode people and start paying attention to whether the relationship you're building is the one that you want. It also gets easier when you know what you want and align your actions with that, because that's what dating intentionally is all about. All right, we're going to take a break here and then get into our dating dilemma. You've probably heard me talk about dating outside my type, and I have to come clean. While I definitely did this in my dating journey, I tend to be very stuck in my old ways when it comes to other things like my eyewear. I will hang on to the same sunglasses and glasses for years and years. I never lose them, and it takes a lot for me to branch out. But that all changed once I discovered Zenni and their incredible customizable eyewear. Here's the deal. Zenni is an online eyewear shop with stylish prescription glasses, sunglasses, and customizable lens options, all starting at under $30. You go to zenni.com, pick a frame, enter your prescription if you have one, customize everything, and they ship it right to your door without going to any stores, no pressure. They also have over 150,000 5-star reviews. And if you never bought glasses online before, they do have a virtual try-on so you can see exactly how a frame looks on your face before you order. It's awesome. I went in and I built a completely custom pair just for myself. And I went for rose gold mirror lenses, and they're so fun. I'm obsessed. I get so many compliments on them. And the part that got me is really the quality. For the price, I just couldn't believe it. Finding that perfect pair of sunglasses was so easy with Zenni. That scratched up pair has done its job. Upgrade today with Zenni. Go to zenni.com/podcast and use code podcast15 for 15% off your first order plus free shipping on all US orders over $65. The styles sell out, so don't sit on it. That's zenni.com/podcast, promo code podcast15.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome back. We have a brand new dating dilemma for you. You can submit yours in the show notes. I read one on every episode, and I want to thank you to everyone who has submitted. All right. I, 46 male, recently reconnected with a 42-year-old woman that I once dated almost 18 years ago. She is separated and moved back to the city where I live. She knows my intentions to build a strong friendship with the goal of moving into a romantic relationship. She's told me her life is a hot mess right now. The divorce, remodeling the house, brutal 7-night-in-a-row nurse schedule. But we flirted back and forth over text and had several multi-hour phone conversations. I've offered low-pressure meets if she ever felt up to it, but we haven't met in person yet. We've been going on 2 months now of talking. Is she protecting herself? Is she protecting me from her chaos? Is she romantically interested? She did give me a future invite to her house when it's finished. What I'm struggling with is allowing to have the space that she needs. I don't know what that is. I want her to see consistency with my effort, but I also don't want to push her away. Based on our talks, I believe she feels I'm honest, authentic, and a safe harbor for her. I also don't want to get trapped in the dreaded friend zone. One more bit of information. Over the 18-year period, I have messaged her to catch up, but it never worked out where both of us were single at the same time. Okay, you're asking me a question that I don't think we could fully answer, right? Which is like, is she protecting herself? Is she protecting me from her chaos? Is she interested? This is what I was just saying earlier. We're not here to analyze other people's feelings that they're not sharing with us. That's not our responsibility. That's not what we have to do as adults who are dating. But here's my take on the situation, right? You've been talking for 2 months. Okay, so you once dated 18 years ago when you were in your 20s. She's going through a divorce. She's got a lot going on. She said her life is a hot mess. Look, when someone says their life is a hot mess, to me, that's kind of them showing up, showing this big yield sign, being like, hey, proceed with caution. Or like, I'm probably not going to give you what you want right now, but you can try and date me anyway. We don't want that, right? That's how I interpret that. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is that if someone says their life is a hot mess, isn't that kind of like a, hey, warning, if you try and date me, it's going to be hard. What this sounds like to me, and I think this is pretty common for actually a lot of guys in the dating world right now, is that you are kind of putting her on a pedestal, right? This is someone you met almost 20 years ago. Maybe you've kind of had this fantasy about her, potentially. Again, this is my speculation. And that usually puts us in this position of like, oh my gosh, like this has to work out. We're kind of in scarcity mode. And I don't like that for you. Based on what you shared alone, I don't think this woman is serious about dating you. Why would she invite you to her house when it's finished, when you haven't even been on a recent date? Talking on the phone, texting for ages without a date. She might be interested, but it's not interested enough to actually go on a date with you. Like, what are we doing here? Also, if she's getting divorced, she might not want a relationship right now, right? All signs are kind of pointing to like, she's not ready. She doesn't have a lot of time. Even though you're single at the same time for the first time in 2 decades, that doesn't mean that this is going to work out. It doesn't mean that this is the right time. It doesn't mean that you're the right fit for each other. And what I always want to ask people in situations like this is, do you want to keep putting energy into someone who is this difficult to spend time with? Your life is short. There are other people out there who would not be so hard to plan with, if that makes sense. My advice overall here is to downgrade this person to friend zone so that you can actually open your heart up to other connections and invest your time and energy in someone who actually can see you and has interest in seeing you in person. That is my advice here. Instead of analyzing what she feels, what she wants, what she's protecting you from, it's like, no, she has a lot going on and isn't trying to date you because you haven't seen her. Like, it would be different if this was a long distance relationship, but it's not. So that's why I say downgrade her to friend zone and take your energy elsewhere. Unfortunately, some people will happily soak up all the attention they can get from you without ever wanting to date you. And that's the trap I think that's happening here right now. Again, let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for submitting this. And thank you so much for listening and being here. Thank you for trusting me. Don't forget that you're doing great. If you know someone who is navigating dating and could use a confidence boost or fresh perspective, share this episode. And if my podcast has helped you, a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify goes a long way. Once again, I'm Talia. This is Dating Intentionally, and I'll catch you next time.
Every day as a small business owner feels like solving a puzzle. One moment you're cruising along, and the next, there's a shipping snag that has you scrambling. But here's a surprise you will like. With Progressive, small business owners save 13% on their commercial auto insurance when they pay in full. So go ahead, surprise yourself. Get a quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.